Rome's deadliest disaster wasn't a war. It was a Tuesday morning, 22 December, year 27 AD. An insula in the Esquiline district collapsed without warning. The building was 6 stories tall. 300 people lived inside. When the walls fell, they fell all at once. Survivors dug through rubble for days. The bodies they found weren't crushed by accident. They were crushed by design. Let's rewind. Rome in the 1st century AD was crowded. The city's population swelled past 1 million. Land was scarce. Builders needed to go up, not out. The insula was born, a multi-story residential block. Most Romans didn't own homes. They rented rooms in these buildings. An insula could house anywhere from 50 to 300 people. The problem was profit. A builder could buy land cheap, throw up 6 or 7 stories in months, rent out every room, pocket the money. And that's what they did. Speed mattered more than safety. Quality didn't pay. The faster the collapse, the faster the next building went up. Augustus, Rome's first emperor, noticed the problem. Around 27 BC, he set a height limit, no insula taller than 70 feet. That's roughly 6 stories. But the law had a loophole. Builders ignored it. Inspectors were bribed. By the time Tiberius came to power, insulae were taller than ever, and they were failing. The materials tell the story. Insulae used cheap brick, rubble, and mortar. The mortar was weak, often just lime and sand, sometimes mixed with volcanic ash. It cracked under stress. Water seeped in. Freeze-thaw cycles in winter shattered the joints. The walls got weaker every year. No one maintained them. The foundations were worse. Builders didn't dig deep. They laid stones on loose soil. No concrete pad, no drainage. Rain pooled underneath. The earth shifted. Walls settled unevenly. Cracks spiderwebbed up from the ground floor. A 3-story building might lean visibly, but it still had tenants. The floors were wood. Thick wood sometimes on the lower levels, but on upper stories, thin beams poorly supported. A floor could sag an inch per year. Tenants heard creaking. They knew they had nowhere else to go. Rent was cheaper in a dying building. Fire made it worse. Rome burned constantly. Insulae were tinderboxes. A single lamp knocked over on the 3rd floor could consume the entire building in minutes. Fires weakened the mortar. Heat cracked the brick. A building that survived a fire was structurally doomed, but landlords rebuilt anyway. The Esquiline collapse in 27 AD changed almost nothing. Augustus issued new rules. Builders had to use better materials. Walls had to be thicker, but enforcement was impossible. The city was too big. Corruption was the norm. A few coined to a magistrate and an inspection passed. Seneca, the philosopher, lived through this era. He wrote about it. He described walking through Rome and hearing the sound of cracking walls. Tenants would prop up rooms with wooden posts, hoping the building would hold another season. Families slept under those posts, listening to the wood shift. Landlords had a dark incentive. If a building collapsed and killed tenants, the landlord faced no legal consequence. There was no liability, no lawsuit. Insurance didn't exist. The only risk was losing future rent from the dead. In economic terms, collapse was just bad luck. Some insulae lasted decades. Others collapsed within 5 years. No one could predict which. A building might stand for a century, then fail on a rainy Tuesday when the water table rose. Or it might crumble on a hot afternoon when the mortar, already brittle, finally gave. Back to 27 AD. The Esquiline building's collapse was documented by Roman historians. They recorded it as a tragedy, a disaster. But they also recorded something else. The next day, builders were already negotiating to buy the land. Within a month, a new insula was being constructed on the same spot. The poor had no choice. The wealthy lived in single-family homes with private courtyards. The middle class occupied the lower floors of insulae. The poorest lived on the top floors, the least stable, the hardest in summer, the first to burn in a fire. When a building collapsed, the poor died. Rome never solved this. Insulae continued to collapse throughout the imperial period. Pliny the Younger wrote about buildings falling in his time. Martial, the poet, complained about living in a creaking insula. The problem persisted for centuries. It was structural, not just to buildings, but to Roman society itself. What killed Insulae wasn't negligence alone. It was the math. A landlord who invested in quality materials and maintenance would earn less profit than one who cut corners. The system rewarded collapse. It incentivized it. The invisible hand of the market was pushing buildings down. This wasn't ancient Rome's only crisis, but it was one of the most intimate. It didn't happen on battlefields or in courts. It happened in the walls of ordinary homes. It killed ordinary people, and it was entirely preventable. But prevention cost money, and money in Rome always won. The Insulae collapsed because Rome's wealth flowed upward. The poor paid to live in buildings that would kill them. The rich built villas that lasted centuries, and the system that allowed this, the system that made collapse profitable, never changed. The buildings fell, the people died, the builders built again. Subscribe to uncover the stories behind the structures, the forgotten details that reveal how ordinary people actually lived in the ancient world.